Thanks. So that's me, Stewart, Bryant, and I'm going to be talking about where to detect, review and metal detector surveys on developer-funded excavations. But at the outset, I'd like to say I feel a bit of a fraud because, first of all, I'm not an artefact specialist. My interest is more in settlement and landscape, and I got involved in the Roman Rule settlement project, although I wasn't actually on it, didn't do any of the work. I was on an advisory capacity because of that landscape interest. However, my talk is going to be based on the work of those others in the Roman Rule settlement project, particularly Tom Brindle, who was on the Portable Antiquity scheme in an earlier life. But I think it's important, the work that the Roman Rule settlement project have done with artefacts, which is now published, for the understanding of Roman settlement and landscape, particularly the location of Roman sites. And I wish to make sure I press the right button. Scroll down. Oh, yeah. That's it. Too far? Sorry, I'm a bit challenged with the.
So I think we should be just
that one. Okay, got it. Okay, well, I'll talk now a bit about the Roman Rule Settlement Project. It's the most thorough, detailed and systematic study of the outputs of development-led archaeological investigation since 1990. Around about 2,600 sites with significant excavated evidence were recorded, and the database of these is on the ADS website. I recommend that. It's very good, very accessible, and there's comprehensive, well-structured data on each of those sites. There's also 3 hefty published monographs, which I think are essential reading for anybody interested in Roman Rule settlement. And I think it has transformed our understanding of Roman Rule settlement in England and Wales. But the thing I'm going to talk about today is mainly the methodological strand of the project, which was funded by Historic England. They also funded a significant proportion of the wider project, but they had a dedicated methodological strand, which was quite far sighted. And I'm going to look at its implications for archaeological practice. Importantly, most of the project's conclusions regarding methodology are probably unexpected, but importantly, they're now supported by really robust empirical evidence. Just remember to press the right button. That's it. Before looking at the methodological study, it's worth having a glance at this, which is one of the many outputs of the Roman Rule Settlement Project, which is a map showing the impact of developer-funded archaeology. It shows some other things as well, but it's one of the best maps which it shows the impact of developer-funded archaeology on archaeology in England and Wales. You can see the first map on the left. That shows really the collective endeavour of a whole century or more in terms of the evidence of Roman Rule settlement from excavations. And you can see there's a high concentration in Wessex and the South Midlands, and a thin scatter elsewhere. The middle map is really just before PPG 16 and represents the post-war housing boom. And you can see there's been a dramatic increase, but there are still areas which are fairly thin where there wasn't so much development. And then you've got the 25 years, so you've got 100 years, then 40 years, and the 25 years up to 2014, and a dramatic increase in the number of sites, so that the green is disappeared, and this represents all of the excavated Roman Rule settlement. The map also shows that dramatic increase in understanding areas where we thought there wasn't much Roman settlement. We now know there is a lot, and generally one of the big stories of the past 30 years is the dramatic increase in, and some of it unexpected, in the extent and number of settlements, for particularly the later prehistoric and the Roman period. And this map shows that very clearly. Moving on to the methodological project, I'm going to talk about 5 pieces of analysis that the project, particularly Tom Brindle, carried out. And this is the first really looking at the relationship between the size of excavations and the likely evidence of coins. And there's a couple of things to point out. First of all, it's a fairly linear relationship between sites on the left, which are less than 1 hectare, And look at the numbers there, it's 2,440 they're looking at, so it's a big sample. The middle group, 1 to 2 hectares, 227, and going down to 103 for 2 to 3 hectares. But you can see that nice linear relationship. So the bigger the area you excavate, the more chance you have of finding coins. It's something, you would expect that, but it's really good, robust data to show that it's true. This is also very interesting, a simple analysis, which probably took years of person times to do, estimating the areas of every single excavation and plotting them and putting them on the boundary of the regions they've used for the Roman Rural Settlement Project. And you can see it's largely determined by the size of developments, but the figure in the south and the east is getting towards 3 times that of the north and west and Wales. And that, together with the slide I showed previously about the likelihood of finding coins, demonstrates that it's going to be more difficult with the average excavation to find coins in the north and the west than it is in the south and the east. Third piece of analysis is really looking at the impact of metal detecting surveys on the recovery of coins. Again, big numbers. Coins were recovered from 44% of all excavated Roman sites. That's the complete data set, 3,600. But for the 8%, that's 297, with metal detecting surveys, this was exactly double, 88%. And you see a couple of slides. The one on the left, on the right, is my first excavation when I worked for Hertfordshire, and we found quite a big haul, 2,500 coins, and an early example of the need for systematic metal detecting on the site. That was back in 1986, dragged from my archives. Third, the next piece of analysis is really looking at the ratio of additional coins which are found from surveys as opposed to those found in the excavation itself. And you can see in the south and east the ratio is 3 to 1, and it's effectively 1 to 1 for these mega regions, the north and Wales, southwest and northeast, because the northeast is biased to some extent by some exceptionally rich finds. Again, not unexpected. But there's really robust evidence to support it that there are basically a lot more coins in the south and east. And actually the detecting surveys are very valuable, and I'll explain why they're potentially more valuable in the north and west and the south and east. Then he looked at regional differences in the proportion of sites with systematic metal detecting. And you can see there's a gradation from the east of England, central west and central belt, which are the areas with massive amounts of Roman archaeology and coins, which are the areas that have been chosen for undertaking the most systematic surveys. Whereas in the north and the southwest, you can see proportions are much, much lower. So in the north, it's 7 times less chance of getting from evidence in the past a systematic metal detecting survey than in the south and the east. Again, figures which are not necessarily surprising, although the difference, the scale of the difference between the east and the north is quite dramatic, I think. So then moving on to looking at the implications of this. The bias against finding coins and other metal artefacts in the north and the west of England compared with the south and east. First of all, the size of excavations in the south and east is 2 to 3 times that of the north and west, and size clearly matters when it comes to finding coins and other metal artefacts. The percentage of development sites with systematic metal detecting surveys is between 3 and 7 times higher in the south and the east than the north and the west. And there are many more times more coins in the south and east than the north and west. And I'm just going to quote from Tom in his conclusions to the his article, which is there's I forgot to say the methodological discussion papers, which are on the Cotswold Archaeology website. There's 8 of them covering different subjects, and a lot of what I've said is based on Tom's paper on artefacts. And this is his conclusion on this subject: where metal artefacts such as coins and brooches are recovered from rural sites in the north, they can be of fundamental importance for contributing to our understanding of various aspects of the rural economy, social status, identity and native military interaction. Given the pressure on resources in commercial archaeology, the admission of metal detecting surveys detecting from sites in the north may seem justifiable. However, it further increases the bias against the recovery of metal objects from rural settlements in the north. This is of importance because if coins and other metal objects are present on rural settlements in the north, they are likely to be of greater significance than if they were recovered in the south or east. So, in summing up, I think the value of undertaking systematic metal detecting on development sites has been clearly demonstrated from a national study of all excavated Roman sites. This value is paradoxically likely to be the greatest in the regions with the least number of coins. There is a clear imbalance in the proportion of excavations with detecting surveys between north and west on one side and the south and east. The recent project in Cheshire, which Vicky Nash will be talking about shortly, is however beginning to address the imbalance and has produced interesting results. The fact this is the Cheshire project, and again Vicky, I won't say much about it, but I think that the fact this project has been subject to independent academic peer review is also to be welcomed and complements the statistical evidence from the Roman Rural Settlement Project. And I think it may be a first in the profession for a methodological study to be independently peer reviewed and published in an academic journal. So I think it's to be lauded for that alone. So finally, the question to responsible detectorists where to detect could be answered by in the north and west, where the relative archaeological significance of Roman metalwork recovered is arguably the highest. There I finish.